Coming up on today's Next Fan Up podcast.
I see other things on this injury report. Competence, how to play football, offensive coordination, proper game planning. Yeah, all those things on the injury report for the Eagles as well.
I do have a sort of request for Doc. I thought one of the things he could do for his NFL-themed menus is to give us a recipe for the teams who have got animals that we could eat. So we could have like raven pie, or he could do cardinal vol au vents. If it's got legs, it's moving, let's eat it.
Yeah, really not looking forward to those Bears, Lions, Panthers recipes. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about Week 11 in the NFL. Here we go.
That's how we start. Yeah, baby.
32 super fans.
Where do the reports come from? Did you get an initial?
One PodVader.
That's football.
Every angle of the NFL covered.
All that kind of stuff, I get it.
This,
no question about it,
is Next Fan Up.
We're going to unleash hell here in December.
Hello and welcome to the Famous Last Words edition of the Next Fan Up podcast. Hey everybody, it's Famous Last Words because literally right before I hit the record button, I said, let's try not to record 2.5 hours. We know that that's probably exactly what's going to happen. We don't know it right now because we literally just started. But by the time we get to the end, we'll be like, oh yeah, 2.5 hours. They did that easy. And the reason why it'll be easy is because I'm joined by these two airbags. Our Washington superfan from across the pond, Neil, and our Eagles superfan, James. Hello, gentlemen. Hello.
Well, Jay, what I would say is that I'm probably due a raise this week because I have given James the last 17 minutes here to ramble on about his bloody Eagles. So he should have got some steam out. He should be calm. He should be collected and ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely not. I'm going to ramble. I'm going to cause a muck and create chaos wherever possible, in this show because I have nothing else better to do as far as football is concerned when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. So, yeah, let's stir up some chaos and some trouble, and I'll start with Cleveland Browns and Las Vegas Raiders. Why?
I tell you, James, one thing I would say is that you're one of the very few people. I've only met a few people like this in my life before, but you're one of those people who has perfected the art of breathing through their ears, so you don't have to actually stop talking to take in breath.
Oh, Neil, I wish I could punch you into the Atlantic.
Wow. My goodness.
Wow.
Violence on the show.
See, if you're
I said punt.
If the Philadelphia defense had as much aggression as you had, they'd be winning more games.
And that is factually correct.
Unfortunately, yes.
So I do expect to have a Doc's recipe for you at some point during this podcast. We will hear from Doc with his latest recipe of the week. You will not hear about the Buffalo Bills, Chicago Bears, New York Giants, or San Francisco 49ers as they are on a bye, although I will probably update their power ranking position later on in the show.
I do have a sort of request for Doc. I was thinking about this the other day. I thought one of the things he could do for his NFL-themed menus is to give us a recipe for the teams who have got animals that we could eat.
Oh, sure.
So we could have like raven pie, or he could do cardinal vol au vents. Or
yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not eating a raven or a cardinal.
Oh, come on, don't be
weird UK person.
If it's got legs, it's moving. Let's eat it. So what else have you got in the league? You got buffaloes. Buffalo. We could have some. You could have some buffalo casserole. There we go.
Sure.
Nice one. I'm sure we could find quite a few.
Sure. Why don't we just cook up some 49er stew? It's got legs. You said we can eat it, Neil.
You know what? Let's not. But in Neil's defense, all the birds in the league probably taste like chicken.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And
that was well done.
And honestly, which one of us has never thought about eating a lion? Be quite nice.
Boy.
If the lion
that was
doesn't
a
eat
controversy from a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Pigskin Pick'em only got 8 right straight up, but also got 8 right versus the spread, which is way better than I've been doing so far this season. The power rankings also only got 8 right correct last week, but Jordan, our Titan superfan, nailed 11 straight up picks. He has a 7-point lead in our group. First place in the Pigskin Pick'em. Yeah. Jordan,
Pick him
the
out the
Titan
group.
superfan.
I would just add to my previous story. I have nibbled on a Viking before, but that's a different story.
Our eliminator still has 3 people alive in that. Let's get to Pod's totally
James.
useless stats.
Hey, wait. Before we go forward, you just mentioned the eliminator, and I believe last week I got clowned for my lock, and it was the only lock I had last week was the Miami Dolphins. How'd that turn out?
Did we clown you? I don't think we clowned you.
Oh yeah, you did. Oh yeah. I believe I was
that.
called crazy for locking the Dolphins.
I don't remember that. I believe Neil was all mad that you kept locking in the obvious ones.
Oh yeah,
that wasn't obvious.
That wasn't.
No.
I'll give you that, James. But yeah, good pick because that's a team on a roll, isn't it?
Certainly is.
And I wouldn't mind eating some dolphin. It's probably like tuna, is it?
It's already mixed in your tuna, Neil. You don't have to worry about wondering anymore.
Oh, excellent. Good.
Oh man.
Across the NFL, 15 teams have at least 6 wins, the most such teams in any season through 10 weeks. In any previous campaign entering week 11, the most teams with 6 or more wins was 14. That happened in 1984 and 1986. I believe that's when Big Brother took over, right?
That was 1984.
Yeah, 1984. Okay. 8 of those 15 teams with 6 or more victories were not in the playoffs a year ago. Since 1990, at least 4 teams every season have qualified for the playoffs after failing to make the postseason the year before. And starting this season, the NFL will unveil a 14-team playoff format, possibly 16-team, with 2 additional wildcard teams, 1 each in the AFC and NFC, qualifying for the postseason. So there's more opportunities for those teams who didn't make the playoffs to make them this year.
I mean, if we could just get this COVID getting a bit worse, then we'll have so many teams that even Washington will be in the playoffs.
Yeah, there you go. This week, 5 games on the Week 11 schedule feature head-to-head matchups of teams with at least 6 wins. And that brings me to this week's power rankings, because as I was looking at the power rankings this week, I was noting how the superfans have sort of put these teams, and it appears, just based on our differential, that we've decided that Kansas City and Pittsburgh are hands down the 2 best teams in the NFL, because if you ranked Pittsburgh number 1, you had Kansas City second. If you ranked Kansas City number 1, you had Pittsburgh second.
Don't think I did.
For you, Neil.
Yeah.
Neil, you were that one outlier that put Kansas City at 3rd.
Yeah. I had New Orleans at 2. Is that right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yes.
That's not going to last long.
Well, I just thought with Jameis Winston coming in there and eating some W's, then they should go up number 2.
But those were the teams that we've had the most agreement on at the top of the charts. Green Bay comes in at 3rd in our power rankings, but there was a differential of 5 spots from their best spot at 3 and their worst spot at 8. But then...
Let me just stop you there, Jay, for a second, because if this ends up talking about the Patriots, I'm out already.
No, I'm not even going to touch the Patriots until it's time to talk about them.
Okay.
What I am going to talk about, though, is this tier of teams from 4 to 6. There's a big tie for 6th place, where the differential is double digits. New Orleans at 4, their range is 11 spots. Their best spot is 2, which, Neil, you mentioned. You were the one that did that. But their worst spot is 13. Tampa Bay is at 5. Their best spot is 4. Their worst spot is 14. It's weird. To me, what this is showing me is that there's this group in the AFC between Kansas City and Pittsburgh, and that's it. Nobody else is in that race. In the NFC, though, it's Green Bay, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Arizona, and the Rams. And and we'll throw Seattle in there too, as sort of a wide open race for who can win that particular division, that conference.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But what I would add to that, and I'm sure James would agree, actually, is that I don't think there's a really, really good team in the NFC. I think there's a group of teams, as you mentioned there, Jay, that are okay teams. Good solid teams. But in terms of teams that really good, there's no standout team in the NFC or standout teams in the NFC. We've seen, I think we probably all had hopes that maybe Seattle was that team, but they've shown some weaknesses in the last couple of weeks. Green Bay, I'm still not convinced. They can play really well, but then all of a sudden get absolutely slaughtered, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to carry it all the way through. But in the AFC, how about Indianapolis? Are you still not thinking they're close to the Pittsburgh and Kansas City sort of level?
Absolutely not.
Well, the next best,
absolutely not.
Yeah, the next best AFC teams aren't even Indianapolis. It's Baltimore, Buffalo, and Tennessee are all ranked higher than Indianapolis.
Indianapolis as well, they should be. And to piggyback on Neil for what he said about the NFC, yeah, there is no really standout team in the NFC. Green Bay can't stop anybody from running the football. The Seahawks have by far the worst defense in the league, worse than the winless Jets by a mile. The Cardinals probably lack inexperience because of their youth. The Rams and the Saints are wildly inconsistent. The Buccaneers, when they lose, get their brains beat in. I mean, those are your playoff teams as we stand right now. And there's big gaping question marks for each of them. We're not even going to talk about whoever wins the NFC East because that's a bye week for the wild card team. And yeah, in the AFC, no one's going to put the Colts up there because of Phillip Rivers' track record.
I think you touched on it, James. You used the word inconsistencies there, and I think that sums up the NFC right the way through, doesn't it?
I mean, all of those teams, like right now, the 7 teams that are currently locked, if you look at the playoffs as they stand right now, the 7 teams slated for the NFC, with the exception of the winner of the East, the remaining 6 teams, you can rotate them in those remaining 6 spots, and it wouldn't surprise anybody as far as where they sit at the end of the season.
That's fair.
And that's both good and kind of bad because you don't know how it's going to play out, but it still gives everyone hope.
James, did you realize you ranked Cleveland 5th?
Yes, I do.
Wow.
What is wrong with you?
That is the lowest ranked team via our power rankings. They're 15th with the highest highest top 10 ranking.
I will ask you this before I get into why I rank Cleveland 5th. Who ranked the Saints 13th?
Who ranked the Saints 13th?
Or whatever their lowest ranking is. Why would a team with 7 wins be ranked so low?
Crazy Jared.
Oh, well, okay.
Okay, so that pretty much sums up that. Now, the reason I ranked the Browns 5th is because they've won their last couple of games with the exception of the Steelers. And yes, I know that when they play Pittsburgh and Baltimore, they get their brains beat in. But for the most part, they've aside from those 2, they've been in every single game. They've beaten the majority of their competition like they should have. And somewhere in that offensive staff room, they've realized, let's not put everything on Baker Mayfield. Let's lean on this running game and dominate our opponents. Understand that game against the Raiders, between the bad weather because the winds were swirling to where I don't think anyone threw a pass more than 20 yards downfield. It rained earlier. It's going to rain again this weekend in Cleveland. And they actually have a defense that shows up week in and week out most times than not. So, yeah, that game that they played this past week against the Texans, if they had started slinging the ball around left and right, they could have easily lost that game. But they stuck with the game plan of we're going to run the ball, we're going to make the Texans play defense, and we're going to bottle up Deshaun Watson. They did all 3 of those things, and they won the game. And when they needed a big play at the end to salt it away, they ran the football. They didn't put anything on Baker Mayfield's shoulders.
I want to just help out the listener here. Listener, if you're just had to endure that from James, what he's basically saying was, if the other team hadn't scored so many points, Cleveland would have won.
I'd also like to point out that the only other superfan, or the closest superfan to your 5th place ranking for Cleveland, is Jordan, who had them at 12. He was the next highest on Cleveland. That's a big difference.
Well, considering I had to drop 4 teams ahead of Cleveland, and a number of teams with Cleveland also had to go up. Yeah, that's how they ended up at 5th.
So the most agreement for any team in our power rankings, because it was unanimous, is the New York Jets. They are dead last at 32. Close to unanimous is Jacksonville at 31. There was only a differential of 2 spots. They were ranked as high as 29, as low as 31. And then after that is Dallas at 30. They were ranked as high as 28, as low as 31. Then Washington at 29. They were ranked as high as 27, as low as 31. And then the final team I'll put in this tier, although they kind of don't belong, is Houston at 28, where they were ranked as high as 21, as low as 29. So you can sort of get an idea of where the super fans are looking. It's basically Jets, Jacksonville, Dallas, and Washington all fighting it out for the number 1 pick. And unless you get negative wins somehow, no one's getting it other than the Jets.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be the Jets.
It is going to be Jets.
We can all agree on that.
What's more interesting?
Look, everybody else has at least 2 wins.
What's equally as interesting though is are the Jets going to have a, let's say they go 0-16, 1-15, whatever. Are they going to have a clean out coaching wise, do you think?
That's the real, to me, that sort of would explain this season. If Adam Gase isn't out next year, then this was their plan.
Yeah.
If Adam Gase is out, then it'd be pretty clear that this was not what they expected.
You would think if he was going to be out, then he would have shown signs of that already, or made soundings to that effect. Whereas at the moment it's all like let's just not talk about anything. Let's just get through the season. And it does make me wonder if they're sort of saying, let's just get the number 1 pick. Let's get this guy Lawrence, and then on you go, Adam.
Okay, so I have 2 things mainly. One, say they do get rid of Gase. Who are the prospects that they hire? And not so much who do they hire, who wants this job? Oh, hey,
well, just before you say anything else, James, if you've got a team that's 0-16, 1-15, that bad, with starting right at the bottom, and you've got the first overall pick in a year where they're supposed to be, and of course you never quite know, but supposed to be the next great quarterback coming out, then every offensive coordinator in college and in the pro game will want that job, because that is going to be that's what you want. If you're going to come in as a first time head coach, if you can have a potentially top class quarterback, that's all you need in this game, really. If you've got that, then that's a great start to your job.
I guess my second point is, should they clean house? I want whatever happens with the rest of the coaching staffs in the league to be mindful of one thing, and just do this one thing in the offseason. Leave Greg Williams unemployed. This man should not have a coordinator job anywhere, and neither should Gase, for that matter. But guess what? Somebody's going to hire each of them as coordinators.
So Joe Douglas is the current general manager of the New York Jets. Let's say the Jets take out Adam Gase and give Joe Douglas the reins. They stick with Joe Douglas as the general manager. He comes from the Ravens, Bears, and Eagles. Are there any potential coaching candidates amongst those teams?
I can speak for Philly. Hell no.
And the Bears have their own struggles. Who was the other team, Jay?
The Ravens.
I mean, the Ravens probably. I would say if I was a GM or an owner, I would be saying, right, I'm going to get this number 1 quarterback. He looks like he's going to be a great young player. I want to get an offensive mind to come in and sort him. And there's 2 standout guys for me: the guy at Kansas City, Eric Bieniemy, and then there's the young guy at Carolina, Joe Brady, who was, of course, the LSU offensive coordinator the previous year. So those are the 2 guys. They're the 2 hot offensive coordinator coaches for me, and put them on your staff with Trevor Lawrence, and I mean, you can't do any better to start off a new era in your team, can you?
Probably not. Is there any college coaches right now that would stand out? Could you get Dabo Sweeney in a package deal?
No.
I'm not hiring anybody who's called Dabo. The hell was that all about?
Well, you also have a thing against Trevor's, so I'm surprised you've been so high on this.
Well,
Trevor
I'm not high on Trevor because A, he's called Trevor, and B, he's 6'6", and 6'6" quarterbacks don't work in the NFL. But that's another story. Yeah.
Thursday Night Football to go through real quick. The Cardinals switched spots with the Seahawks in our power rankings. They moved from 12 to 6. The Seahawks fell from 4 to 10. The Seahawks are favored by 3 points in this one. We did a wonderful Thursday Night Football preview, which is fairly short. It's 17 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're listening to this right now, expecting to hear a Thursday Night Football breakdown, go listen to that other podcast. It's available wherever great podcasts are heard: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You will hear that breakdown, but what you won't hear that I came across today is with 2 touchdown passes and 211 passing yards against Arizona, Russell Wilson will become the 5th player with at least 3,000 passing yards and 30 touchdown passes in his team's first 10 games of a season in NFL history. And for the 5 previous instances, the player was named Associated Press Most Valuable Player. Only Peyton Manning in 2014 with the Broncos didn't get the MVP. That year it went to Aaron Rodgers. So there, again, the battle of the MVPs, Kyler Murray or Russell Wilson, it can still be Russell Wilson never got a first place vote.
It won't. He may get the vote this year, but he's not going to win it. Not after these last 2 weeks.
Well, there's still time to go. Of course, when is the actual cutoff for the? It's before the end of the season, isn't it, or before the playoffs?
For the playoffs,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's got time yet to do that. I mean, he's playing in a big big Thursday night matchup tonight, so maybe that will be a chance to, and in the national spotlight to have a better game than one of his challengers there in Kyler Murray. So big chance tonight that could redeem him a little bit.
Well,
Vegas hope, but he's got 6 picks in the last 2 games.
Well, he's got to clean that up. Vegas likes the Seahawks. I mentioned on that podcast that I like the Seahawks, but I'm taking the Cardinals specifically because the opposite has happened in every Thursday night game so far this year. And Neil likes the Seahawks. So the fact that James likes the Cardinals should make you feel a little bit better about the Seahawks.
How long will it be in tonight's broadcast before one of these suits says something along the lines of Russell Wilson has more picks in his last 2 games than he's had MVP votes in his career?
Oh, that's a great line. And Joe Buck will totally do it too.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I think so.
I don't plan on listening to those 2 while I watch the game. I plan to listen to Hannah Storm and Andrea Kramer and their broadcast.
Oh,
James,
wait, time out. Have you listened, James? I know that they do a special broadcast on, I think it's on Prime, right?
It is on Prime, and I didn't know until earlier this week. So I plan to watch it on Prime tonight to listen to them specifically.
I wonder if I'll get it over here on my Amazon. I should do, shouldn't I?
I don't see why you can't. It's an internet thing. You can get the internet everywhere, as far as I know.
Yeah. But sometimes they have international restrictions on things, some things. But it'd be good if it was like that. Yeah. I would say, James, you're quite right. I mean, you may want to swim across the Atlantic and punch me in the face, and I do appreciate that effort. But I would say one thing we can certainly agree on is, as NFC East supporting guys, listening to Joe Buck and Troy Aikman on any game is just an absolute nightmare.
That is true. Let's get to the Sunday 1:00 games. See, look at that. 23 minutes really before we even got to the 1:00 game. So we're going 2.5 hours, guys. The Atlanta Falcons are at the New Orleans Saints. The Falcons 23rd in the power rankings. The Saints are 4th. They are favored by 5 points. They also entered the game against the Falcons, having not allowed a 100-yard rusher in 52 consecutive games, which is the NFL's longest streak since the 1970 merger. I was talking about this with Neil before, if you had given me 5 guesses as to the team that this stat pertains to, I would not have come up with the New Orleans Saints. Neil, you love their defense.
Yeah, no, I think they've had a very good defensive line and linebackers for a number of seasons now. So when you think about it, it's not really a big surprise. But you're right. I mean, how many guesses would it take? Because you'd be thinking Ravens, you'd be thinking Steelers, James would be thinking Cleveland. So it would take you a while, wouldn't it, to get to New Orleans? But that's pretty good. I still think they're a really top class team, the Saints, when they have things going. But of course. Am I right in thinking that it's going to be a certain Mr. Jameis Winston, who I've got to say looked very small and skinny in that black uniform last weekend? I don't know what that was. He looked. Did you not guys not think that when you saw him? He's like, is that really Jameis Winston? He looks really, really thin.
I did not think that, but black is slimming, or so they say.
Also true, yeah.
James, what is the latest here on Drew Brees, Mr. Broke 5 ribs, collapsed lung, and just wants to eat a bagel and not talk to the press?
Jay's just changed his pick.
Brees is out for at least the next 2 games, and be mindful that they play the Falcons in 2 of these next 3. This will be an interesting matchup to see how things play out, because they probably will rush him back depending on how these next 2 games go with Winston under center, because they didn't look that great with him under center for the second half this past week against the Niners. But, 5 broken ribs, collapsed lung. Don't expect Brees back anytime soon until the next Falcons game. I'm going with the Saints here because, again, like I said before, this rivalry here, I've seen it a number of times. This is the type of thing where everyone outside of this rivalry thinks the team with the better record should easily win this game. I for whatever reason, I just don't see it happening. Raheem Morris has got these guys playing better defense. They won 3 of the last 4. And yet it could still all go to crap because I'm picking Atlanta, because they tend to like to do the opposite of whatever I tell them to do.
Well, as Neil is letting people know on our little sheet that no one can see except for us, I did change my pick. I originally had the Saints. You reminded me that Jameis Winston is starting and not Drew Brees. And Jameis Winston, as we know, famously went 30 for 30 last season.
He doesn't have enough time to do that this year.
No, but in 9 career starts versus Atlanta, he has thrown 9 interceptions. So a guaranteed interception coming in this particular matchup.
But I kind of think, I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what Sean Payton does with Jameis Winston, because, we all laugh at Jameis and his 30 interceptions and all the rest of it. But in between those 30 interceptions, the guy has all the hallmarks of a really, really top quarterback. He just happens every now and again, or 2-3 times a game, to throw an absolute terrible pass. In between those, I mean, he's got everything he needs in his game. Now, can he refine that? Can Peyton work with him there? It'd be fascinating to see it. I do think they'll put points on the board with Winston. And you're right, they'll have to sort of suck up to the fact that he's going to throw a couple of picks every game probably. But I'm quite looking forward to seeing how this Jameis Winston looks like, because he was always a very talented player. He doesn't have anything in his game not to be able to play at a really high level. It's always just between the ears, isn't it, with him?
And Taysom Hill, how much of Taysom Hill are we going to see? Because, they paid Taysom Hill backup quarterback money. They didn't pay him gadget player money.
Well, unfortunately, he will still be a gadget player, because if he's the starter, that takes away a lot of what you want to do as far as running the offense. His niche is this offensive gadget player. Eventually, he may someday be the starter, but as long as they keep finding, veterans looking to rejuvenate their career, he will be the third string quarterback and the gadget player for this offense. He will not be the bona fide backup to Drew Brees, and he won't be the heir apparent anytime soon. So, I mean, this is his role for right now.
Let's not forget that Taysom Hill is also 30 years old. It's not like he's a 24-year-old guy who's still got a long
I thought
career ahead of him.
I thought he was like 26, 28.
No,
he's older.
He's 30. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
I'll look up his
he doesn't
exact
have much time
age.
left.
Well, you
I
guys,
guess paying him backup money was just because of his age then, to actually reward him for sticking around so long.
Yeah.
He could have bolted in free agency.
Yeah.
he's 30 years old from Pocatello, Idaho. That's what Google will tell you. I also changed my pick because the Falcons have won 4 of their past 5 versus the Saints, including their last meeting in November of last year, a 26-18 victory at the Saints. The last time they played in Atlanta was in November of last year, and they beat the Saints 26-9 in the Mercedes Dome.
Yeah. I mean,
so I think the Falcons. James mentioned this to me during the Tuesday podcast. I don't remember if it was on the podcast or off air, that it's a division matchup, and you can throw the record books out when it's a division matchup. And while the Saints might be a better team, the Falcons seem to have the Saints number.
And that's very true. And as I'm sure the listeners have realized after all these years, James does say his best stuff off air.
Injuries for this game. The Falcons, Calvin Ridley is nursing a foot injury. He was limited in practice on Wednesday. He's questionable for Sunday. For the Saints, other than Drew Brees being out, Alvin Kamara shows up with a foot injury. He was limited in practice on Wednesday. Ryan Ramczyk is listed as questionable, along with Cameron Jordan, Marshawn Lattimore, Dwayne Washington, and Josh Hill.
Like, what's wrong with Lattimore? Because that's a biggie. Because he would be covering
Lattimore
Julio.
has an oblique strain, so he was limited in practice. Josh Hill and Traquan Smith are in concussion protocol.
The Cincinnati Bengals are at the Washington football team. The Bengals 26, the football team at 29. But they really need a nickname.
Well,
I'm tired of just referring to them as the football team.
It's interesting you say that. Their general executive chappie, whatever he's called, Jason Wright, is it? Jason somebody. He came out and said that keeping the name as it is still very much on the cards.
Ugh, I hate it.
Yeah, because the owner has come out and said, I think somewhere around the end of September, beginning of October, there was an article released that said there is no rush to change the team name before the 2022 season.
That's right. Yeah.
So they will be this football team all through next year as well, through 2021 at the minimum. So they're in no rush to change his name. And I think this is more so in somewhat minor defiance of them having, basically because of public outcry, finally, to drop the previous moniker. And it's something I know that Snyder didn't want to do. He was adamantly opposed to it. He was pretty much, that was the hill he was willing to die on for whatever reason.
I think he's just worried they're going to be called the Washington McWashington Faces.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I do wonder. I have 2 questions. I have one thing to say and one question. First question is, in America, is it difficult for you sort of grammatically to say, for example, the Eagles versus Washington, or the Bengals versus Washington? Is that something you can do? Because it seems to be on sports coverage that they have a terrible problem that they have to call them the football team. So they say the Giants against the football team, rather than saying they will happily say New York against Washington, but they won't say the Giants against Washington. Now that's the first thing. That's a question for you guys. And the second thing is, if it was me, I would just drop the word team. I would just call it Washington Football. I think that's quite great. I love the W logo. That's really smashing. I like that a lot on the helmets. And I would just call it Washington Football. But you have to help me out with the grammatical thing, because that seems to be a huge issue in the media for them over there.
It's called laziness, Neil.
Yeah.
They want to call everybody by their nickname or everybody by their city name. And a lot of it actually goes back to their before they embraced the gambling world. They didn't want their nicknames associated with gambling. So the broadcasters, when referencing each team in a gambling sense, could only refer to them by their city name versus their team nickname. Or else the NFL would call them up and say, hey, get our names out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It both the gambling and a uniformity thing. So if they tend to go by the nicknames, they do it uniformly for all of them. I have noticed in the past couple of years, though, that certain broadcasters and analysts would never refer to Washington by their moniker. They stopped doing it and just refer to them as Washington.
But even leaving Washington aside, you never ever heard them saying, "Oh, it's San Francisco are playing the Seahawks," or anything like that. And
hold on, Neil. The only exception there would be referring to which New York team they were talking about, whether it's Giants or Jets.
True. And also, you got your San Francisco Giants and your New York Giants and that sort of thing, haven't you, with the baseball team? But the other thing, of course, it just makes Scott Hansen on Red Zone sound like a complete prat when he starts talking about the football team.
The football team. Well,
you're listening to yourself, Scott, because you are.
Because officially, that's what they are this year. I don't know if it's trademarked, but that's.
It'll be trademarked. Yeah, it's trademarked.
Yeah.
So the football team. The football team is favored by 1.5 in this one. The power rankings are taking the Bengals because they are 26th, and the football team is 29th in the power rankings. And when Washington hosts Cincinnati on Sunday, it will mark the 5th game featuring a rookie quarterback selected 1st overall and a rookie defensive lineman selected 2nd overall in the same NFL draft in the common draft era. I will put a quick pause there because is Chase Young expected to play in this game?
He is not on the injury report, so I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the rookie defensive lineman team has won each of the previous 4 matchups, which is why I am going with the football team. That and Alex Smith, despite doing everything he could, I guess, to lose the game, also put up a lot of yards last week in a losing effort.
That's harsh. He didn't. It was, to be honest with you, it was the defense. We seem to have developed this knack of having to give up the first between 10 and 20 points to the opposing team before we start to play. And I think we were, 24-3 down or something, and then we rolled all the way back. But of course, when you're 24-3 down, it's difficult to consistently come back and win those games. And anyway, because you ended up losing on an error by Chase Young. To be honest with you, he got a 15-yard penalty against them, which put them in the field goal range at the end.
Low to the head.
So yeah, okay, you could say didn't look like a foul, but in today's rules, it's a foul. They throw that penalty, and then that was a big rookie mistake, which I think he's owned up to at least. So, but yeah, no, I think for me, Jay, I'm with you. I think Washington will just pip the Bengals in this game. I think they probably just have slightly more overall than the Bengals do at this current stage. Although
they don't want it more, Neil.
I haven't seen Washington wanting a game for a long time, Jay, so I don't know what that looks like, to be honest.
James, you are going with Cincinnati.
Yeah, because Neil said it right. And if you look at the game last week against the Lions, this defense, for Ron Rivera's expertise outside of the front 4, the defensive line, these guys' heads are not in the game until after halftime. And this has been a thing. Unless they're playing inferior competition, it's pretty much just the defensive line making things difficult, and the linebacker and secondary is they're just there. Their poor coverage technique. They're out of position. Receivers are running wild whenever they want to, and if the D line doesn't get to the quarterback, it's a field day. Then the linebackers don't even fill the gaps in the running game. So. Ron Rivera is supposed to be, a defensive-minded guy, and this defense has not been playing well the last couple of weeks.
What is the injury report here?
Jerron Christian, the offensive tackle for Washington, was placed on injury reserve earlier this week. Kicker Dustin Hopkins has the inner thigh thing going on, so he's questionable for Sunday. Dontrell Inman, wide receivers, nursing a hamstring injury. Ryan Anderson is also listed as questionable for the game. For the Bengals, Trey Waynes was placed on injury reserve after the game on Sunday, so he's out for a couple of weeks minimum. Other than that, we have Joe Mixon still nursing his foot injury. He was limited in practice yesterday. Geno Atkins, Bobby Hurt, and corners LaShawn Sims and Mackenzie Alexander all show up as questionable. Mackenzie Alexander, the big name there because he's in concussion protocol.
Too bad this game's not being played on Saturday because it's going to be downright gorgeous in the Washington, D.C. area. 65 degrees, partly cloudy, a slight breeze of 6 miles per hour. Sunday, 56 degrees and cloudy, so not terrible football weather. And the breeze picks up just a tad, 8-mile-per-hour winds out of the east. So nothing that will result in any sort of game-changing weather.
We had our first snow here today.
Oh, lovely, Neil. Did you make a snowman?
Awesome sauce.
No, I didn't have time to do that. There wasn't enough snow for that. It was more sort of flurries coming
Dusting.
across. It was lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very well. Okay.
You changing your pick again, Jay? No,
I am not.
I see that thing moving.
Well, because it's time for the next game, which is the Philadelphia Eagles at the Cleveland Browns. The Eagles somehow moved up the power rankings to 21. How? I don't know. The Browns moved down to 15, and we talked about them at the top of the show. They are favored by 3.5 points in this particular game. You guys are locking it in. Well, we know why James is locking it in because the Browns are his favorite team. Why are you locking it in, Neil?
Well, first of all, this game should really be called the James Bowl because this is really this is these two teams here. It's going to be a heart-wrenching Sunday for you, James. Who do you want to win? Oh, my God, it's going to be tough, isn't it? And I will go with the Browns because I do believe, even though the Browns are not a top 5 team, Jay, I do believe that they are a superior team to the Eagles in almost every department currently. So the thought of the Browns running on that Philadelphia team, that must put fear into James's heart, even though he is a Cleveland Browns fan. So I'm not sure how that makes sense.
I don't think the weather is going to be like it was for the Sunday night game in New England.
That was breezy, wasn't it?
But there is a 10-mile-per-hour wind, showers, and 48 degrees is the predicted high for this game. I'm also going to take the Browns just because the Eagles are terrible, James.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me. I watch them every week. And for whatever reason, this team, 1, doesn't learn from its mistakes, and 2, allows the team to do whatever it does worse, best. Mm-hmm. So after looking at the 2 games against the Giants again and then looking at the upcoming schedule with a lot of mobile quarterbacks, which, Baker Mayfield is to some extent, I expect the Eagles to get gashed by read option at least 3 times because Jim Schwartz is too dumb to realize, hey, young quarterbacks can actually run. You might want to practice read option.
What's happened to him, James?
He's an idiot. I don't know if he has a brain aneurysm or some other mental illness or deformity that's going on in his cerebellum, but not smart is not the proper way to put that. He lacks all cognitive sense whatsoever to actually do what's appropriate. He doesn't adjust during the game. He just like, that's how they're beating us.
All right, so clarify
something else that they're not doing.
Are you pro Jim Schwartz or against Jim Schwartz? I didn't quite. No,
I'm not. I'm not pro Jim Schwartz. I you know what? Clean the whole house on the defensive side of the ball and start from scratch. If Atlanta's too stupid to keep Raheem Morris, I would like him as our next defensive coordinator.
Wow. Those fickle fans in Philly.
I'm just saying. Plus, look, Cleveland does a great job of running the football. They've limited Baker Mayfield, but the way this defense is playing, they might want to turn Baker Mayfield loose in this game. I mean, what's it going to hurt? It's not like the secondary can cover anybody except for Darius Slay.
Tell us how you really feel, James.
Yeah. I mean, look, outside of the front four, I mean, this defense is really only 5 people. Those 4 guys on the defensive line and Darius Slay. Everybody else is trash.
What is the injury report?
Myles Garrett did not participate in practice on Wednesday because of illness, not COVID related. But Cleveland does have an outbreak of COVID. Well, I shouldn't say outbreak. They've had people in their facility test positive for COVID. The league has instituted extensive protocols for the entire league as of the end of last week. I believe it was Friday. But still, the Cleveland Browns, one of those teams that has a couple of cases. The Eagles, this seems to be a misprint here. It only shows 2 names. Sean Bradley and Rudy Ford, but I see other things on this injury report. Competence, how to play football, offensive coordination, proper game planning. Yeah, all those things on the injury report for the Eagles as well.
Thank you for the tease. The Detroit Lions are at the Carolina Panthers. Lions are 20th. The Panthers are 22nd. So Vegas favors the Panthers by 1.5. The power rankings will take the Lions. Despite the home field advantage for the Panthers, we count home field advantage as only 2 points, which would make a tie. And the team that was originally ranked higher will get the win for the power rankings in that regard. So the power rankings are taking the Lions. These two teams are really equal in terms of all of their stats, offensive stats, defensive stats. But where they may not be equal is their kicking games. So I've got kicking stats for you guys.
Oh, Lord.
Matt Prater converted a 59-yard game-winning field goal in the Lions' Week 10 victory, tied for the fourth longest game-winning field goal with no time remaining in regulation or overtime in NFL history. It also marked Prater's 11th career game-winning field goal with no time remaining in regulation or overtime, which is tied for the fourth most since 1970. He's also converted a 53-yard field goal last week, has converted 57 field goals of at least 50 yards in his career. With 2 field goals of 50 or more yards this season, he can surpass Sebastian Janikowski for the most made field goals of at least 50 yards since 1991. Janikowski has 58. Yeah. I don't know if Matt Prater is going to be the reason why, or just the Lions look like they are, in fact, playing better. As we mentioned on the Tuesday NFL Sound Off podcast, I don't think we should be talking playoffs for the Detroit Lions, despite the fact that the playoffs could end up with 8 teams out of the NFC. But I do think that they are playing better and going week by week. I'm going to take the Lions. I don't feel very confident about that, though. James, you're taking the Panthers. Do you feel confident?
No, and that's the thing. I don't feel confident about either team in this game, which is weird because someone's got to win. I mean, unless they tie. But the biggest concern in this game, and it's been all week, is the status of each quarterback. Teddy Bridgewater's been nursing a knee injury that he sustained last week, and Matthew Stafford has a thumb injury on his throwing hand. Now, neither quarterback practiced yesterday, probably not going to practice today, but I keep an eye on this injury report all the way up through game time, despite the walkthroughs on Saturday, because whichever quarterback is best available, that's the team I'm going to go with. So if Stafford sits out and Bridgewater plays, or Bridgewater sits out and Stafford plays, that's how I'm going to ride, with my pick on this game. Right now I'm going as if they're both going to play, and I like Bridgewater better than Stafford. And even though this defense is young, Stafford makes more mistakes than Bridgewater does.
Neil, you are taking the Lions. Do you feel confident?
No, I just realized I had to put a cross in a box, so I just put a cross in one of the boxes. What I would say is there's some breaking news in the NFL.
Oh, breaking news.
So,
Yep.
And it's that the Seahawks Stadium has got a name change. What's the Seahawks Stadium called up to this point?
Quest.
You guys?
Quest.
No. CenturyLink Field.
Oh, that's right.
And it's now being changed to Lumen Field after Lumen Technologies. And tonight is the first game. It's going to be called Lumen Field.
That's great. I'm glad we broke into the podcast with that fascinating news.
Yeah, fabulous news. Yeah.
So is Neil going to give analysis on this game, or should I just finish the injury report?
Report.
Do the injury report. Yeah, I don't care about this game.
I mean, I don't know if anybody cares about this game. I think it'll be a close game, but I mean, in the long run,
Todd,
does it matter?
I will say this for your friends' fantasy football team: Chris McCaffrey is out, so David might get the bulk of the characters.
My friend has no ownership in Christian McCaffrey, so we're not worried.
Just in case he has Christian McCaffrey's backup,
okay.
He's not on the injury report. Other Panthers showing up: Russell Okung nursing a calf injury, and that's pretty much the only big ones. On the Lions side, We've got Christian Jones with a knee injury. Marvin Jones has a knee injury. TJ Hawkinson, toe injury. Kenny Galladay with a hip injury. And, of course, Damon and Ndola with a hip injury. And all those guys are listed as questionable.
By the way, the weather report for Charlotte, 65 degrees, cloudy, a slight breeze, very slight breeze, only 4 miles per hour. So
that's the other thing. They're playing outdoors.
They are, but I get that the Lions play indoors, but they're not necessarily a bad outdoors team.
Okay.
The Tennessee Titans are playing the Baltimore Ravens. This is a game that we should all be very interested in. The Titans, though, in a game that would have last week been between two top 10 teams, this week is a little less interesting as the Titans fall to 11th and the Ravens have fallen to 7th. 7-11. It's a Slurpee game. Go get yourself a Slurpee and enjoy the Titans-Ravens ball game.
I hate you for that.
Ravens are favored by 6 in this one. Neil, you are going with the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I'm going with the Ravens, but you do wonder, Jay, after we saw the performance they put in against your Patriots last week, are injuries starting to catch up with the Ravens? That would be the question I would pose for you two fine gentlemen.
No, because the only injuries for the Ravens are Jimmy Smith, Calais Campbell, and Brandon Williams this week, and they're all listed as questionable.
Yeah, but they've lost Ronnie Stanley, and carry on, Jay.
Well, you mentioned Calais Campbell and Brandon Williams. That's their two big defensive linemen, which is a big reason why the Patriots were able to win that game, on top of the fact that it was calling it a monsoon is not even doing it credit what it was doing in Foxborough last week. I do think that's a major concern right now for the Baltimore Ravens is their defensive line when they're going up against Derrick Henry and the Tennessee Titans. James, you like Derrick Henry and the Tennessee Titans.
Actually, I like the fact that Mike Vrabel, having played and coached under Belichick and his disciples, probably picked something up from last week, is going to do it this week to Baltimore. Pretty much see if they can, if they've made the adjustments, and if it keeps working, just keep doing it. Not to mention he knows the rule book just as well as Belichick does. So if this game is close at the end, expect something a little out of the ordinary.
Both these teams on defense rank high in different categories. For instance, the Baltimore Ravens have allowed the least amount of points per game, only 18.3. The Tennessee Titans have the best takeaway giveaway ratio at plus 10, 14 takeaways, only 4 giveaways so far this season. Ryan Tannehill has played pretty well for this team. Although last week he did not get his 2 touchdowns, which he was aiming for. He had a long streak going of 2+ touchdowns. Again, it's a game that I think is going to be rather close and really competitive. In the end, I agree with what you said, James. I think Vrabel will probably try and do something similar defensively that the Patriots did to contain Lamar Jackson. Lamar is not throwing the ball as well as he did last season. That's probably an understatement. And
not
Derrick
running
Henry,
it that well either.
And Derrick Henry is going to have big holes if neither of those 2 big defensive tackles are playing for the Ravens.
Yeah, and on the flip side with the Titans, they have a number of injuries on the defensive side of the ball as well. Jadeveon Clowney, Chris Jackson, and Adoree Jackson all show up as questionable. Offensively, Adam Humphries is in concussion protocol. Michael Pruitt didn't practice yesterday because of his knee injury. And Saffold and Ben Jones, their offensive linemen, also show up as questionable. So this is going to be it should be close. Who coaches better?
I will add that I've been going against Vegas and the power rankings quite a bit in this podcast, which does not make me feel good. Weather in this one, again, apparently on the East Coast, it's going to be a much better day Saturday than Sunday, but it won't be bad in Baltimore. 56 degrees and cloudy with an 8-mile-per-hour breeze in Baltimore. So weather, not really a factor in any of these games so far. Are we ready for the next one?
Sure.
It is the New England Patriots at the Houston Texans. The Patriots have moved up to 18th in the power rankings. The Texans have fallen to 28th. The Patriots are favored by 2 points in this particular game. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about one J.C. Jackson, whom Patriot fans know better as Just Cover Jackson. He leads the NFL with 6 interceptions and is the first player with an interception in 5 straight games since a 5-game streak by Reggie Nelson in 2015. Since the 1970 merger, the NFL's longest streak is 6 games, 7 times, most recently by Brian Russell in 2003. J.C. Jackson was signed by the Patriots as an undrafted free agent in 2018 and is on pace to become the first NFL player with double-digit interceptions since the Chargers' Antonio Cromartie had 10 in 2007. Quite honestly, when was the last time the NFL had a double-digit interception leader? It's been a while.
Probably Cromartie.
Probably. With 14 interceptions in his first 3 NFL seasons, Jackson is in rare company. Since the merger in 1970, only 3 undrafted players have had more interceptions over their first 3 NFL seasons. That would be Everson Walls with 22, Herman Edwards with 16, and Bernard Wilson had 15. Since 1970, Mike Reinfeldt in 1979 and Pro Football Hall of Famer Emmett Thomas in 1974 have the most single-season interceptions by an undrafted player with 12. One of the reasons J.C. Jackson gets targeted so much is because other teams have been avoiding Stephon Gilmore. Stephon Gilmore has been out for the last couple of weeks, and now J.C. Jackson's been thrust into the number 1 spot and has done sort of inconsistent is a good way to put it. He'll come up with a big interception, but will also allow a bunch of big plays at the same time. And that's sort of, I think I said last week I didn't know who this Patriots team is. And I do. I have a better feeling now of what this Patriots team is.
I'm more interested in another Patriots guy here, Jay, that you could talk to us about, and that is Jack Easterby, who is single-handedly destroying a franchise. Tell me about this guy.
That's the interim GM for the Houston Texans.
Yeah. A guy who was described by Bill Belichick as not a personnel guy.
No, because he wasn't. He was the Patriots team minister before he went to Houston.
Jeez. I mean, I doubt even God knows what he's doing in that team.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is proof that prayer works miracles.
Yes. I mean, he sacked the female, what was she, the press officer or something? Or the
PR person, yeah.
PR person, fired her because she wasn't with the organization. I mean, this guy, I mean, what does he think? He's going to be the GM, isn't he?
No, Houston said that he will not.
But he's going to be, isn't he?
I mean, if he ends up becoming the general manager for Houston, God help Houston.
Well, they've got the guy if they need God's help.
I guess so.
Yeah.
This Patriots team, by the way, is a solid team that will come up with a surprising victory against good teams because of Bill Belichick. That is what this team is. Otherwise, this team is trash. If there was any other head coach coaching this array of talent, if you can call it that, this team would be just as bad as the New York Jets. But because Bill Belichick is the coach, they can scheme in ways to make you look stupid.
What you're saying is the team is the 93 Browns.
Is that what the 93 Browns did? Only you would know, James.
You and the Browns.
I'm just saying, wasn't Belichick the coach of the Browns in 93?
Was he? He might have been. I mean, this team has no right. Going into that game against Baltimore, no one had the Patriots, not even me. I was going to get blown out by the Ravens. Yes, the rain was a bit of a factor, but it didn't play that much of a factor. It shouldn't. Well, let's put it this way: it shouldn't have played as much of a factor as it did. Going into this game, the Texans have pretty much checked out already. The Patriots should be the favorites in this particular game, and the Patriots should win. Now, will I be surprised when the Texans come away the victors? No, I will not.
No.
Because the Patriots, from a talent standpoint, don't have the same amount of talent that the Texans have.
91 and 95, by the way, on his Browns coaching career.
I would probably take issue with that, Jay. I think quarterback position aside, I think the Texans look poor in that roster.
I would say I would take the Patriots offensive line and maybe the Patriots secondary.
Which, to be fair, is half the roster if you count it up numbers wise.
Fair.
That's not even half the roster.
But I'm not taking. But the Texans should have the advantage at every other position.
I bet
should. But like you said, if anything, I think this defense is checked out, and that's sad because Romeo Crennel is a defensive specialist, and the fact that he can't consistently get the best out of this defense week in and week out. I mean, yeah, last week they held Cleveland to 10 points, but I think that was more so due to the elements as far as neither team being willing to throw the ball that much until the end of the game when Deshaun Watson had to heroically get a last-minute touchdown.
BC James, this goes back to the Easterby question, doesn't it? Because what does Easterby not want? He doesn't want a young, exciting coach coming into this team. He wants some old guy like Crennel to take over, take on the head coaching job. He can slide into the GM job, and he's happy. And I think that's what we're seeing happening here. And it looks like a team that's checked out completely. They look like that. Even Deshaun Watson looks like a guy who's just trying stuff to see if something can happen. He just looks like he's kind of checked out of the season as well.
Look, for as solid a line that they have in Houston, it's not playing up to its talent level.
Exactly.
And so that's why he's running for his life trying to make stuff happen. I mean, his best wide receiver was traded away. And while the remaining three are playing adequate well, he has no go-to guy that, I'm in trouble. Who am I throwing this up to?
But they don't look like
– they don't tuck it and run.
They don't look like a team who, if they're 3 or 4 points down in the fourth quarter, are going to muster a drive to win a game or make a stop to win a game. They just don't – you just don't see that when you look at them, do you?
Because the old line will self-destruct and get Watson killed.
Yeah.
I forgot what I was going to say. What's the injury report?
Duke Johnson has an illness. Kenny Stills has a back injury. He didn't practice on Wednesday. Laramie Tunsil also shows up on the injury report along with Calameti. On the Patriots side,
who's going to run the ball if Duke Johnson isn't available for the Texans?
Deshaun Watson, probably.
The other Johnson.
He's out.
David Johnson still.
David Johnson's on IR.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
DJ Procise, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, okay. Well, they could find some other Johnson. For the Patriots, Damian Harris is nursing chest and ankle injuries. He was limited on Wednesday. Ryan Enzo has a hamstring injury. He was limited on Wednesday. Kicker Nick Folk has a back injury.
He seemed to do okay in the rain.
Stephen Gilmore has a knee injury. He was limited. And other players showing up as questionable are Dietrich Weiss, Isaiah Wynn, Joe Tooney, John Simon, Shaq Mason, Lawrence Guy, Adam Butler, and Jawan Bentley.
And the same old. And by the way, I shouldn't say he did have a couple of kicks. He had one kick blocked, and I believe there was a punt that was partially blocked in that game against the Ravens.
Yeah, let's move on because there's a lot of chat about two bottom feeders.
That's true.
Well, one last thing here, Pod. You should be happy with your fan base there because J.C. Jackson was apparently left off the Pro Bowl ballot when it was released earlier this week. And you mentioned he leads the league in interceptions. Now he's on the ballot.
Yeah, he's back on it. That was just an oversight.
Yeah. Oversight. I think
Jack Easterby wasn't there. That's why. Pittsburgh Steelers are at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Steelers are number 2. I'll repeat that. The Steelers are number 2 in our power rankings. The Jaguars
I don't know how.
Are 31st. Well, because there were only 4 superfans that ranked the Steelers number 1. I think that was right. Let me double check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Everybody else has got Kansas City number 1.
Sorry. Couldn't do it.
Steelers are 10-point favorites in this particular game. With 83 scrimmage yards on Sunday against Pittsburgh, James Robinson will become the 5th undrafted rookie to record 1,000 scrimmage yards in the common draft era. And while I think James Robinson can attain that particular mark in this particular game against Pittsburgh, it won't be enough. And the Pittsburgh Steelers will remain undefeated. And we all agree on that.
Yeah, and James Robinson is banged up going into this game with a shoulder injury, so you might want to back that up as well.
I'm not backing that up. I say he gets the mark this week. He doesn't have to wait till next week.
Luton is still quarterbacking the Jaguars, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because Minshew, let's see, Coach Doug Marrone said Monday Minshew won't be available to face the Steelers, but may throw a little this week, whatever that means.
On his way back.
Other Jaguars on the injury report include Laviska Shenault nursing a hamstring and James O'Shaughnessy, the tight end, nursing a knee injury, along with Sidney Jones and C.J. Henderson, the cornerbacks. So, I'm still trying to figure out how this Jaguar team hung with the Packers last week. It shouldn't be the case this week against the Steelers.
Shouldn't be. And you want to talk about gorgeous weather. This is your game to go to. 77 degrees, partly cloudy, a nice 10-mile-per-hour breeze.
It's in Florida, right?
Yep. My dad lives, not too far away from the stadium, so I could actually go visit my dad. It'd be nice.
Yeah, this sounds like a game that Ben Roethlisberger will screw up for no good reason.
Yeah, he better not.
I'm just saying.
I have a friend who might be relying on Ben Roethlisberger's fantasy stats.
He might want to rely on the Steelers' offensive line and the non-injury components of their backfield, because running backs Trey Edmonds and Jalen Samuels are both questionable with hamstring and quad, respectively.
All right, well, since we all agree that the Steelers are going to roll in this one, we can move to the 4:00 games, shall we?
How many of those are there this week?
We only have 4. I mean, that's pretty typical.
That's all right.
It's better than 3, but not as good as it was last week when it was 50-50. Wasn't last week just spectacular? Neil, how long was your bath last week?
My bath had more bubbles than it's ever seen before. I was in there for about 3 hours. When I came out, I looked like a stewed prune.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. What's the first game we got at 4:00?
Was it like Eddie Murphy? Was it like a spa?
It was exactly like that. It was like a spa. James, there's always room for you, baby.
No, thank you. I'm going to pass on that.
Hopefully people know the Eddie Murphy quote I'm referencing. All right. Miami Dolphins are at the Denver Broncos. The Dolphins are on a hot streak and have moved up to are these numbers in the right order? Because typically it would be 31, but this says 13 for the Miami Dolphins. The Denver Broncos have fallen to 25. Vegas has the Dolphins as 3.5-point favorites. Tua Tagovailoa on Sunday at Denver can accomplish something only one other rookie quarterback has done in the last 40 years: win his first 4 NFL starts. Only Ben Roethlisberger, who won his first 13 starts as a rookie in 2004, owns a longer streak in that span. Now, that's in the last 40 years. There are other quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks, who won their first 4 starts. And those other quarterbacks are somewhere on this particular press release.
Well, while you're doing that, I'll just go ahead.
I have it.
You sure?
Mike Krzyzewski of the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1976 won his first 6. Phil Simms, might know him, the New York Giants in 1979.
Never heard of him.
Won 4. Virgil Carter of the Chicago Bears in 1968 won his first 4. So Tua looking to join an illustrious list of quarterbacks to win his first 4 NFL starts. I think he's got a good chance to do it. And so do you guys.
They're a team with momentum, aren't they? The Dolphins.
Momentum. Is that right up there with they want it more?
Oh, I think momentum's more important. And that was they're definitely a team on the rise, and seeing the Bills and the Dolphins up there at the top of that division, that's obviously a surprising look, but it's good to see two outstanding sort of young teams, if you like, making a fight for the division. I know it's not exciting for you, Jay, but it is exciting, I guess, for a lot of neutral fans to see that. And yeah, Tua looked pretty good. The defense looks pretty good. They keep, something, the head coach they've got there, he came from the Patriots, didn't he?
Yes, yep. Brian Flores.
Yeah, and a well coached team, you often see it because the special teams do well, or they make big defensive plays, and you're seeing that with the Dolphins. They're doing a lot of stuff right there, and you can see that enthusiasm and ethic team ethic has gone right through the squad, and very impressive to watch. Very impressive to watch.
Well, I would say, and I want to bring this up real quickly, since I don't think we have a lot to break down in terms of X's and O's in this particular game. But remember, Flores, when he took over the team, also famously jettisoned Minkah Fitzpatrick, who was the defensive player of the year for a while there with the Pittsburgh Steelers once he left Miami. But Miami's defense this season has really picked things up. And that goes a lot to having the right fit in terms of culture and player and coach. It was clear that the player and the coach were not on the same page. And Brian Flores established his alphaness as the head coach and said, this is the way things are going to be done. And it's working out. Oftentimes that's a move, Houston, that it doesn't work that way.
But I think what we see different from Bill O'Brien's reign in Houston, in Miami, we're seeing a team that has a plan. And that plan is coming into fruition. They did that swap sort of mid-season there with taking Fitzpatrick out when he was playing quite well and bringing Tua in, and that shows you that the coaching staff are all on the same page. They timed it perfectly, or it seems like they've timed it perfectly, and it's all from that point of view, from the coaching point of view. And you can say the same for Buffalo, because Buffalo had the same thing. That GM, head coach, that whole organizational vision, they're all on the same page there. You can see that both with Buffalo and with Miami, and that's exciting to see for two franchises that have struggled, of course, for many a season behind the Patriots, who also had that well coached team ethic going on there for so many years.
To piggyback on that, the Dolphins, we laughed at them over the last two seasons before this one about the fire sale that was going on, them jettisoning all their big names and high-end talent. It's pretty much what you have to do when you're going to rebuild a culture. And, establishing the head coach is the guy that's running the show here, not personalities of these athletes. So, getting rid of Fitzpatrick and Tunsil and, a lot of the other guys, whatever, the only, I would say double-digit year veterans on this teams are expatriates like Kyle Van Noy.
And just to slap James up the ass one more time, you can look at that.
Gosh.
You can look at that in the sense that just look at the stark reality there between Miami and Houston. What team with a plan did all that stuff that James has just said quite rightly against the Houston Texans, who have just kind of there was no plan there for sure. And who has Houston's first two picks in the draft next year? The Miami Dolphins. And you're thinking that could be a top 5 pick.
A couple other things to note about the Dolphins with this particular game. With the victory, they will tie the Bills, as the Bills are off this week. Both teams will have a 7-3 record. However, due to division record, the Bills are undefeated currently in the AFC East. The Dolphins are 1-2. But the other interesting aspect is the Dolphins are kicking butt. They have a plus 69 point differential so far this season. So Dolphins are getting the job done, and could be that one team that gets that last playoff spot that we keep arguing shouldn't be given and make some noise.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't.
So on you go,
I don't think
James.
it's the last one. I think they get one of the first two. They keep playing like this. Yeah.
And I'm just thinking. So I keep Dolphin. I'm just thinking of Doc and his recipes. Come on, Doc. Char grilled dolphin steak.
Oh Lord, no.
What's the injury report? Hopefully, it doesn't
if the Bills
involve
aren't careful down
dolphin.
the stretch, the Dolphins could sneak up on them and win the division. Heaven forbid. A two-team race in the AFC East, and the Patriots are nowhere in sight. This is wonderful. The Broncos injury report includes Drew Lock with rib. Huh?
They're only 2 games out.
Okay. Mine will be 2 years out. Drew Lock's nursing rib injuries. Jerry Judy's nursing an ankle injury, and Noah Fant has a rib injury as well. Those are 3 big offensive stars to keep an eye on. On the defense side of the ball, cornerback A.J. Bouye is listed as questionable, along with linebacker Josie Jewell. For the for the Dolphins, Kyle Van Noy and Solomon Kinley are the only names showing up here, and both are listed as questionable. Van Noy has a hip injury, did not practice yesterday.
And I know it's not an accurate thing to say, but there is always a sense I get when teams have few players on the injury report, just a couple of guys, that team's usually winning.
The New York Jets are at the Los Angeles Chargers.
Talking about
we have to.
The Jets are unanimous 32. The Chargers have fallen to 27. The Chargers are favored by 8.5 points in this one. I am going to lock the Chargers in. I'm going to take.
Don't do it.
I'm going to take the easy lock.
Don't do it.
Which I have. That has definitely that has bitten me in the butt before, for
Don't
sure, with the Chargers. But I'm going to lock them in.
No.
This is why, James. This is why. Because smart Alex, like Neil, is actually going to take the Jets to win their first game this year.
Well, you should, because you're locking in the freaking Chargers.
No, it's the other way around. Neil, being a smart Alex, taking the Jets is why you can lock in the Chargers.
No,
well,
Neil go.
There's a clear reality here, of course, and you'll have seen this in the news that the Chargers have had their Samson moment where Herbert has had a haircut. He's shaved that old head of his, and I think his strength will go with that, and that's why I have. And this is football fact. When that happens, your team loses. So chop off the hair. Samson's on his way, and his strength's going to be drained from him, and it's going to be a clear victory for the Jets. Who, come on, I also just don't want the Jets to go 0-16. I don't want any team to go 0-16.
Yes, 0-16.
Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't even wish that on Dallas. But I just like to see a team win at least one game. I think that's terrible for the players especially.
Well, I definitely wish it on the Jets.
I definitely wish it on Dallas too.
You too. Gosh.
Are you going to make us talk X's and O's on this, Neil? I mean, come on. The Jets are just terrible. They have nothing. And I know the Samson effect, and I know that the Chargers like to just lose the game in the final moments of every single game they played. Which is why you
didn't lock them in
this season. But it's the Jets. They're awful.
Yeah, the same awful Jets who pushed you to the brink on Monday night a couple of weeks ago.
Any given Sunday, Jay. Any given Sunday, isn't that what you guys say?
Sure, but I mean,
it's more out of hope than expectation. But I really hope the Jets get a win, and maybe this is a game they have a bit more of an opportunity to win. I'm not sure. The Chargers have done the usual chargering, haven't they, by playing really well, and you look at them, you think, wow, there's some real talent there on that team, and they end up losing games for reasons that are very difficult to actually fathom. And maybe this will be one of those games.
They're not difficult. They're easily explained if you watch them play. It's called choking.
The Jets have averaged 13.4 points per game, 266 offensive yards per game. That's it. They're terrible.
Mm-hmm. They are indeed terrible.
Putrid. And then you're like, well, the Chargers have given up 349 yards per game. But the Jets give up 402 yards per game.
But there's lots of terrible in any sporting tournament, and you can say, well, look at the Bengals. They've won twice. The Jags have won a game. Washington's won a couple of games. So there's lots of terrible going around. It doesn't mean say you have to lose every game. And I think, it might just be, this week might just be the week where they finally pick up that win. I hope so. Come on, Jay, be a bit more charitable. It's Thanksgiving next week, isn't it?
Well, Jay, in Neil's defense, his boyfriend, Sam Darnold, said that he's very confident he'll retake the field before the end of the 2020 season. So,
and it's Joe Flacco? Wait, and Joe Flacco is starting this game? Come on, Neil.
Yeah, Joe Flacco starting.
Yep. Is that the Super Bowl winning Joe Flacco? Yeah.
Oh God.
Let's move on to another game.
The Jets injury report has guys on it. Notably, Rashard Perriman is nursing a shoulder injury.
That's a medical term, Jay. We don't understand that medical term.
Their kicker is nursing an inner thigh injury.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we understand that term.
First injury for a kicker.
Oh, my gosh. The Chargers' Tyrod Taylor is questionable. He was a non-participant in Wednesday's practice due to a rib injury. I'm guessing the doctor punctured his lung a little harder than we thought.
That's terrible.
That's all there is on the Chargers. That's all I got. Sorry.
All right, good. The Dallas Cowboys, whom we wish an 0-16 season on, are at the Minnesota Vikings. The Cowboys are 30th in the power rankings. The Vikings have moved up to 16th, and they are favored by 7 points in this one. However, what you guys didn't realize is Gilbert Grape is not starting at quarterback. Oh, no. The Red Rifle is back, Andy Dalton. And I dare say this is an upset special if there ever was one.
Adam and Eve on a raft, a cup of muck, and an upset special.
All right, so 2 minutes ago, you're berating me for taking the Jets. And then you come here and tell me that the Cowboys are going to stop Dalvin Cook.
Listen, the Cowboys don't need to stop Dalvin Cook. They just
Yes, they do.
They'll just need to keep scoring. And let Dalvin cook.
Right.
Let him cook, and then they go and they score. And they just need to keep scoring, and they finally will have a quarterback who will be able to keep up with Dalvin Cook. Because James, your favorite quarterback, is playing on the purple side of the field, and he likes to give away the ball this season.
He's just won his first primetime game.
Wait. I want to understand this. So Dak Prescott went down against the New York Giants, in which that was the last time they scored more than 20 points in a game. Since then, the point totals for the Dallas Cowboys, no matter who's been playing quarterback, has been 10, 3, 9, and 19. And by the way, the 10
didn't even play a game.
Yes, he did.
Played a quarter?
Dalton played the entire Monday night against the Cardinals, which is 38-10, and he played at least the first half against Washington, which is 25-3. Okay. The Washington game is where he got knocked out.
Remember, James. James, remember, though, as Jay predicted, that Andy Dalton's MO is big scoring.
That's right.
I don't see it.
No, neither do I.
If 10 and 3 are big scoring, then yay.
We don't get. I thought Joe Buck and Troy Aikman would be at this game, but no.
They're avoiding all Dallas games this year.
Oh, come on. Troy Aikman loves his Cowboys.
No, this year he doesn't. Jay, I just think I've watched Dallas every game this year, and that defense is not stopping even Kirk Cousins and their sort of they've got Jefferson and Thielen in there. They've got Rudolph having it at tight end. Cousins is going to have a good day, and then you throw in Dalvin Cook, and Dallas's defense made Washington's offense look like the greatest show on turf. So it's going to be one long old night for the Dallas Cowboys there, I'm afraid to say. Poor old Kevin's going to be crying into his Tony Romo doll.
Do we have a write-up for Kevin this week?
Oh, I did ask for write-ups, didn't I? And I've completely ignored them.
You did, because you started with Atlanta at 1:00. You missed MJ's.
I did miss MJ's. MJ's is the only write-up, so sorry, MJ, I missed yours.
The whole group
is the only one that wrote. He's the only one that wrote anything.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, what Kevin's feeling, but I don't see how Dallas stops the Dalvin Cooks, and the Dalvin Cooks should pretty much just keep handing the ball to Dalvin Cook and let Dalvin cook, because the Dalvin Cooks are pretty good right now. And, occasionally they want to let the guy who hands the ball to Dalvin Cook throw the football. That's perfectly okay, as long as it's off play action, because everybody's focused on Dalvin Cook. And, as long as they have Dalvin Cook, they can win this game. So in Dalvin, we trust.
How many times were you going to say Dalvin Cook? Were you attempting to do it at least, 10 times in one sentence?
No, I just feel like the Dalvin Cooks have a chance to, do what the Dalvin Cooks do, which is basically just run the football and just, complement that with some nice play action by that guy who turns around and hands it off to Dalvin Cook, because I don't want to say his name. So until they prove otherwise, they'll be the Dalvin Cooks, not the Minnesota Vikings.
All right. Well, I still say I'm sticking to it. I see an upset here. It's brewing.
You're wrong.
Under the surface. The Cowboys are gonna pull off a big upset, shock the world. As much as the world can be shocked by a team with a losing record beating another team with a losing record.
No. Where's your son? He needs to come in and tell you how crazy you are, like he did on Tuesday.
No, but my son and my daughter are making way too much noise in the background right now as I'm trying to record a podcast here. Ridiculous.
Injuries for this game: Randy Gregory, Zach Martin show up in the injury report. Both are listed as questionable. Trayvon Diggs is placed on injury reserve with a foot injury. For the Vikings, Cameron Dantzler, cornerbacks in a concussion protocol. Backup tight end Irv Smith was limited in practice with the thigh thing going on. And offensive linemen Ezra Cleveland and Garrett Bradbury show up as questionable as well.
All right. The
Dalvin Cook.
The Joe Buck-Troy Aikman game is this one. The Green Bay Packers at the Indianapolis Colts. The Packers have moved back to third in our power rankings. The Colts have fallen to 12th. The Colts are favored by Vegas by 2 in this one, which I find quite interesting.
It's because they have the number one defense in the league.
Aaron Rodgers leads qualified NFL passers with a 116.4 rating this season. And Green Bay ranks 6th in the NFL with 395.8 yards per game and 3rd in the league with 30.8 points per contest. Colts have allowed the league's fewest yards per game at 290.4 and the 4th fewest points per game, 19.7. I really should be keeping track of the top-ranked offense versus the top-ranked defensive matchups because they keep happening every week, and I keep forgetting which side is winning. But honestly, I don't think the Colts are moving in the right direction, and I'm going to go with the Packers. But the Packers aren't necessarily moving in the right direction either. Neil, you're taking the Colts. Why don't I listen to you two, and then I'll make my final choice.
Yeah, I just feel the Colts are a fairly well-rounded team. I like them defensively to make enough stops here in this game against the Packers. The Packers, they're a funny team, the Packers. Some days you sit and watch them and Aaron Rodgers is spraying the ball all over the field and they look fantastic, like they did there at some moments against the Jags. But that was a perfect game there. They seem to play really well against the Jags at times, and yet that game was close right to the end and they could have lost it because their defense is just...
He threw 2 picks.
He threw 2 picks. Their defense is just it's not consistent enough, Jay, for me. We talked about that at the start of the show, the sort of inconsistent teams in the NFC, and that's where you see that the Packers really struggle. They struggle to put teams away, and I just think there's an overall consistency with the Colts, both defensively and offensively, that will help them here in this game. It's also indoors, isn't it, which is going to help Phillip Rivers, and the offensive line is very good in Indianapolis. They give him time to throw the ball, and I think they may just pick apart the Green Bay defense and maybe just have 1 or 2 drives slightly better than the Packers can muster over the course of a game. So give me the Colts. I think it'll be tight. I mean, it's a 2-point spread, isn't it? So I think that's fair. I can see the Colts maybe winning with a late field goal. I think the Colts. Yeah, okay, they're not offensively as explosive as perhaps the Chiefs, and maybe not quite as aggressive defensively as the Steelers. But I think they're up there. I think if they get a home game indoors in the playoffs come the new year, then they'll be a tough team to beat this season. But certainly in this game, I think they'll have just enough to edge the Packers.
Yeah, I like everything Neil says there, and I'd be more inclined to agree with him, except for one name he mentioned in all of that rhetoric, and that's Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, he did say that being indoors helps Phillip Rivers, but I think it also helps Aaron Rodgers just as much as it helps Phillip Rivers.
Considering they're playing in similar conditions, I'm still taking Rodgers over Rivers because
are they not making the Packers have their drives outside?
Yeah, no, that's not how it works. But here's something that folks probably didn't know, that in his career, Phillip Rivers has led the league in interceptions twice, and Aaron Rodgers has only had double-digit interception seasons twice. So who do I trust to take care of the football more, despite the fact that Rodgers threw 2 picks last week against Jacksonville and facing another one?
I have to correct you on that. He only threw 1 interception last week against Jacksonville.
Okay, so 1. Sorry. Probably should have been 2 the way the Jaguars are playing.
He has 3 total this year.
So there. Rest my case. I'm not going to say any more until the injuries.
I will also add that, if you want to give the Colts any sort of edge, they do have the sign of the devil on their side. Phillip Rivers has completed 61,666 career passing yards and passed Dan Marino for 5th most in NFL history. Now he can go to the injury report. Is the devil on it?
Oh, gosh. For the Packers, the big one is Jair Alexander, the best cover corner. He is in concussion protocol and has a hand injury. He was limited in practice. Keep an eye on that going through the rest of the week. Mercedes Lewis nursing a knee injury. Darius Shepard, shoulder injury. Equimines St. Brown with a knee injury. Robert Tonyan nursing an ankle injury. Other receivers, Alan Lazard, core muscle injury, and Devontae Adams nursing an ankle injury. So the entire receiving court for the Packers, something to keep an eye on this week. For the Colts, tight end Jack Doyle remains in a concussion protocol. Safeties Julian Blackman, Kari Willis show up on the injury report as questionable. Mo Ali Cox was limited on Wednesday with a knee injury.
Yeah, I believe Devontae Adams doesn't play in this game like I believe in Santa Claus.
You don't believe in Santa Claus?
Robert Tonyan it could be a possible miss though. If he's got an ankle injury, he's a big part of that offense.
Sure.
Yeah, they should just turn around and hand the ball off.
They probably will, but it's indoors.
They do have a nice, it
is indoors.
They have a nice stable of running backs.
They have a nice stable of wide receivers too. Underrated Marquez Valdez-Scantling. All right, let's move to Sunday Night Football. And this is a matchup that requires much more of a breakdown than that we can provide. The Kansas City Chiefs are at the Las Vegas Raiders. This is a rematch from earlier this season. Nick and Monty will not be on this particular show. Sorry to disappoint you. However, stay tuned to your favorite podcast listening app as the Chiefs-Raiders Superfan Battle will be presented to you sometime on Friday afternoon. I have yet to hear it, but I'm sure it'll be lovely. And I'm told that Nick pays up his wager to Monty from their previous battle. I hope Monty did not make another wager with Nick. I'm glad to hear, though, that Nick paid up and it didn't do a double for nothing. Chiefs are first, number 1 in our power rankings. The Raiders are 14th. Vegas, that being the gambling version of Las Vegas, favors the Chiefs by 8. How does that work? Do the casinos go, we're supposed to favor the Raiders because they're our home team, but we're gonna favor the other team?
I don't believe sentiment comes into many betting establishments.
That's too bad. On third down, both the Raiders and Chiefs have excelled. Las Vegas leads the NFL in third down offense, converting 50.4% of its third down attempts, while Kansas City, 50%, is tied for second in that regard. Kansas City's Patrick Mahomes leads the NFL with a 139.6 third down passer rating, while Derek Carr has 112.9 passer rating and ranks 4th among qualified passers. Travis Kelce and the Raiders' Darren Waller share the NFL lead among tight ends with 15 third down receptions. Kansas City off a bye. I don't have Andy Reid's record off the bye, but I believe he's number one in that regard.
Pretty damn good.
Yeah.
It's either him or Belichick.
Yeah. It's super high. So it's prime time. It's in a dome, so weather won't matter, and it's in Las Vegas, so it wouldn't have mattered anyway. I am going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs to absolutely rock the Raiders as they are pissed off that the Raiders did a victory lap on the bus. Hopefully the Chiefs can do a victory lap around the Roomba after their victory. But, Neil, you disagree.
This is my upset special for the week. I think that first game they had early in the season was a terrific game. And I why not the Raiders? Why not the Raiders winning this game? They've beaten them once this season, and for all obviously they're 8-1, aren't they? The Chiefs, so clearly still an outstanding team. But why not? Why not lose a second game to the Raiders in the Raiders Stadium? It would be good for the division, good for football, and I think they can run on the Chiefs defense.
Time out. I'm glad you're giving more because I was about to call you out.
No.
I want to call him out on saying his reasoning for them to win is it's good for football.
It's good for football, for sure. Can't deny that. Good for football, and I think they want it more. But, you look at the offense. Derek Carr's played really quite well. Their offense is fairly well balanced there with Vegas, and I think that's important. And yeah, come on, let's give the tough division game, give the Raiders a double over the Chiefs, and we can all move on next week.
I mean, I'll say this about the Raiders: I did not expect them to be 6-3 at this point in the season. I don't think. Let me go back and look at my preseason predictions as to where I had the Raiders. Oh, no, I did not have the Raiders at this point. I had the Raiders losing a whole bunch of games in the first half of the season, winning a whole bunch of games in the second half, but nowhere did I expect them to be 6-3.
They're one of those teams where you think, there's green shoots of hope in Vegas. You can see, okay, maybe the quarterback position isn't solidified for the long term, and maybe they deal with that. But that's a question for another day. But I think you can see the receivers they've got, the offensive line. They're hoping maybe even Trent Brown will be back again this season at some point. That would make a big difference. And defensively, I mean, last week I think the guy was it Heath who had a couple of interceptions last week, and they looked aggressive again. I said it earlier, Jay. Another team who appear to have a plan. And if you like Gruden or not like Gruden and Mayock and all those guys, they still look like a team who know where they're going, and it's good to have a bit more competition in that division as well. And obviously the Chiefs are going to score some points, but they haven't looked a great powerhouse as they did last year. And I realize their record's 8-1, but they haven't looked as offensively explosive as they did in the last couple of years. So I think it'll be a fairly close game, and the Raiders maybe just pip it at the end. So fingers crossed.
And yet they are number one in the power rankings.
George. Yeah. Well, they are 8-1, aren't they? I mean,
so here's the monkey wrench in everything Neil said. And if you were able to hear me at the top of the show when I called out both Cleveland and the Raiders, COVID. Raiders.
Oh, that's right.
The Raiders, Cleveland Farrell, defensive end, tested positive. And because of that, multiple players and staff, because of close proximity and high risk of being near him, have also tested positive. Those players showing up on the injury report include defensive end Kendall Vickers, defensive end Arden Key, cornerback Isaiah Johnson, defensive tackle Jonathan Hankins, defensive tackle Malik Collins, and safety Jonathan Abram. All are currently out as of right now.
Well, they haven't tested positive. Let's clarify.
They've
not tested positive, but due to close proximity, they're on the COVID list and they're not allowed to practice.
Nope. And you got to wait 5 days. Now, these tests came back yesterday. And 5 days from yesterday puts us on game day, Monday, excuse me. So, yeah, they're not going to make it. And you're talking about 6 guys here, 7 including Farrell. were all key to that defense. To at least
5 days.
slow down Kansas City.
They can still make it. They can still make it to Sunday. They just got to show negative tests all the way through.
And
they have to have 2 back-to-back negative tests.
Oh, yeah.
So
all I'm saying is keep an eye on this because as of right now, they're still listed as out due to COVID reasons. Looking at the bottom line across all NFL shows I'm looking at, none of them are cleared right now to play. So if they're cleared to play, it's either going to be Sunday morning or sometime late Saturday. I'm not holding my breath here. You know what I meant.
Too soon? Can we not make COVID jokes?
Well, you can make COVID jokes because Scotland are about to receive their first delivery of vaccine and roll it out at the beginning of December. So that's good news for us.
We can definitely make jokes about that.
We can.
All right.
Other non-COVID names on the injury report for either team: Jalen Richard for the Raiders, along with Cheeson Nixon, the other cornerback, and Sam Young, the tackle, Eric Harris, safety, Colton Miller, offensive tackle, and Maurice Hurst, the defensive tackle, all listed as questionable. Non-disclosed injuries for the Chiefs: Bo Pete Keys, Rashard Fenton, the corners, both listed as questionable. Fenton suffered an ankle sprain in last week's win over the Panthers. Taco Charlton is officially out, fractured his right leg in the win against the Panthers. So he's definitely going to miss, if not a couple of weeks, then the rest of the season. He has not yet been put on injury reserve. And tackle Mike Remmers is questionable with rib injuries.
All the best jokes are COVID jokes.
No.
All right. Monday Night Football features the Los Angeles Rams at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Rams are 9th in the power rankings. The Bucs are 5th. So this is a battle of top 10 teams. The Buccaneers are favored by 4 points in this particular matchup. The Rams rank 2nd in both total yards allowed per game, 296.4, and points allowed per game, 18.7. Tampa Bay ranks 3rd in the league with 300.3 total yards allowed per game and is tied with Pittsburgh for the NFL lead with 17 takeaways. In sacks, the Buccaneers with 32 and the Rams 31 rank 2nd and 3rd respectively in the NFL. And of course, Aaron Donald is right up there, along with Tampa Bay linebacker Jason Pierre-Paul, the only 2 players in the NFL with at least 7 sacks in each of the past 5 seasons. So as much as these 2 teams might be known for their offenses, their defenses are making a lot of noise this season. Despite how well the Rams are playing, and I kind of want to try and give them some credit, we're all taking the Buccaneers in this game, and I'll give the Rams something in this. Tampa Bay has looked terrible in prime time this year, Neil.
Yeah, but there's 2 words here for me with this game. Andrew Whitworth. And I believe
I didn't say Tom Brady.
No, Whitworth's out, isn't he, for the season?
Yeah.
That's going to be a massive blow to Goff and the offense's hopes. I just think the Buccaneers, I simply outscored them in this game. Although I do rate the Rams, I just think that's an absolute killer blow.
By the way, the last time these 2 teams played was in September last year. Jameis Winston put up 55 on the Rams, who put up 40. That was definitely not a defensive play.
Nope. It was an awful game to watch.
I don't know if Brady can put up 55, but I know he'll try.
Yeah, look, with the talent that they have, yes, they can put up 50 on this Rams team, because there's just 2 things you have to take care of. One, limit Aaron Donald's impact, and I know, sounds crazy coming out of my mouth, but it can be done. You can limit his impact and not let him take over the game. And 2, stay away from Jalen Ramsey. But teams don't want to seem to do that this year. They're hell bent on throwing at him. So to no effect, by the way. But yeah, if they can do those 2 things, and look, the Buccaneers have a receiving core after Mike Evans, Scotty Miller, Godwin, Antonio Brown, Gronkowski. I mean, it's not like you can clone Jalen Ramsey and put him on all those guys. So find out where he is, go to somebody else, pick apart the rest of the secondary, and throw up points. My concern is the first hit that Donald puts on Brady, because Brady's 65 years old, and if Donald actually sacks him, he's a big man, and that may put Brady out of the game.
Aaron Donald is actually a smaller man than most defensive tackles, but he's just built like a truck.
Mm-hmm.
You brought up a whole bunch of names on offense, and that's really the key for the Buccaneers on offense, isn't it? So Mike Evans, in his last game against the Rams, Mike Evans last week had 77 receiving yards and a touchdown, but Chris Godwin was able to put up yards. And then Antonio Brown gets a whole bunch of catches for little yards. And then Rob Gronkowski sneaks in with a touchdown. That's the thing. You can pick your poison, right? So you put Jalen Ramsey on Mike Evans. Chris Godwin, the last time these two teams met in that giant game, had 12 catches for 172 yards and 2 touchdowns. So then you go and you put Jalen on Chris Godwin. Then there's Antonio Brown. Then there's Rob Gronkowski. There's too many weapons. You've got Ronald Jones, who's running for his job. They obviously brought Leonard Fournette in because they didn't think Ronald Jones could handle the rock. And look at this. Ronald Jones is a better running back than people have given him credit for. The Buccaneers offense is definitely lights out. We've talked about this Buccaneers defense in the past, and those linebackers, those Levante David and Devin White, might as well add Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul to that list. I mean, the Bucs do appear to be a complete team, but we're back to the word of the week, Neil. What is that word? Inconsistency.
Inconsistency. Jay, there is one thing, though, here. I have to ask you, do you miss the 3 great Patriot legends in terms of Brady, Gronkowski, and Brown?
No. No.
You must.
Because Brady, Gronkowski, and Brown would not be putting up these numbers if it was in New England.
No?
No.
But they'd be putting up better numbers than you currently have, huh?
Well, it doesn't take much to do that.
Like you, me, and James could probably do that.
And the Rams seem to have figured out that they need to have just as good of a defense as they have on offense to be competitive in the NFL, and they're doing it this year. But you're right. The loss of Andrew Whitworth on that offensive line, I mean, we saw it in Hard Knocks this season. He's a big leader for that team, and that's going to be a huge hole that they're going to have to try and fill with somebody.
Yeah, when you lose a Hall of Fame left tackle, and I think he is a Hall of Fame guy, it's a massive blow, especially when you do still get the feeling that the Rams are nursing Goff through games in terms of his overall performance, which sometimes looks really great, but he needs protection. As soon as that protection breaks down, he's one of those quarterbacks who does really start to struggle. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. Maybe more quick passes, but don't you just feel though that the Buccaneers are going to put a lot of points up? Even I get James is he's quite right about Ramsey and Donald, of course, but you still think the Buccaneers will just have too much for them, too much power.
Yeah,
on offense. Yeah.
I do. By the way, Jacksonville still holds as my game of the week in terms of weather. 81 degrees and mostly sunny in Tampa on Monday, but this game will be played at night. The low is 62. So nice. Just a little bit better in Jacksonville during the day than Tampa in the evening. So no weather games this week, gentlemen. Did we do the injury report, James?
There is no injury report for either team.
Oh, there you go. Well, it's probably too early because it's Monday Night Football. All right, so there you go. That is Week 11 in the books, ladies and gentlemen. Your Buffalo Bills have fallen to 8th in the power rankings. The Chicago Bears have fallen to 17. The Giants have moved up to 25th, and the 49ers remain steady at 19 in the power rankings. And those are your 4 teams on by. You can send us your emails, nextfanup@gmail.com. You can tweet us at NFU Podcast, facebook.com/NFU Podcast, a great way to continue the conversation. See the recipes that Doc has provided us. I know I'm a couple weeks behind. Also, I don't believe Doc sent me a recipe for this week. If he does send me one a little bit later, since he hasn't sent me one since we were recording, I will post that on Facebook and on our website, nextfanup.wordpress.com. Thanksgiving next week, gentlemen.
That means Washington will be live on television, which is probably not a great sight.
We will, I will tell you right now, and this will be news to James, that we will not have an NFL Sound Off podcast next week, but we will have a Thanksgiving Day preview that will come out on Wednesday, and then we'll have the rest of the Week 12 preview that will come out at some point while you're eating the turkey on Thursday.
Well, that's what we need. That's what we need from Doc, isn't it? We need a Thanksgiving special recipe. You know,
I believe he's planning on providing one for us. He did give us his holiday jam, or I forget. It's a delicious fruit concoction that I cannot wait to make for this holiday.
You know, you could always sort of like, forget turkey. Why don't try some tasteful bear?
It's not going to happen.
No.
Do you want to leg a ram? Is that
that'd be quite good, wouldn't it? Yeah, that's right. Yes, that's a
little
good one.
Mint jelly.
Absolutely, yeah. Have some rams.
You know what? I wonder if Colt tastes like veal. Is that?
Oh man,
that's like dog food, isn't it? Of course, yeah, that's right. Yeah. You could have some ram though, some nice sheep, and then you could have some,
completely off the rails right now.
Smothered in a cardinal sauce.
What's that sheep stomach stuff you love? Haggis.
Oh,
yeah,
haggis. There you go.
You make haggis out of a ram gut? Is that?
Absolutely,
gosh.
Definitely, yeah. That's right, yeah. Ooh, yeah. Well, I could have that right now.
The end of the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. For Neil, for James, for Doc, I am PodVader. Enjoy your Week 11 action. There you have it.
Dear friends and colleagues, saying goodbye is never easy. I believe we can all feel proud of what we have done together, and through it all, you have maintained your professionalism and commitment and remained true to the spirit of the Charter. That principle.
We go out, we hit people in the mouth.